Welcome students. Today we have to discuss Operation Blackboard. This scheme, Operation Blackboard, was launched in 1987 to improve facilities in schools by providing more teachers, rooms and teaching learning equipments. The Operation Blackboard scheme seeks to bring both quantitative and qualitative improvements in primary education. This scheme consists of following three components: provision of at least 2 teachers, as far as possible, one of them women in every primary school; providing at least 2 classrooms that are usable in all weathers with a deep veranda along with separate toilet facilities for boys and girls in each primary school; and providing teaching learning equipment to all primary schools. The scheme was implemented through the state governments with 100% assistance from central government towards the salary of additional teachers and teaching learning equipments. It was proposed to cover all primary schools under the Operation Blackboard that were in existence as on 30th September 1986. The need for corresponding and implementing such a scheme had emerged because of the concern of meeting the basic learning needs and enhancing the achievement levels of primary school children. The following extracts from the document, Challenge of Education, that preceded the formulation and adoption of NPE 1986 fully substantiate the above-mentioned factors. Many primary and middle schools do not have even the basic facilities. For instance, the 4th All India Educational Survey 1978 indicates that about 9% primary schools were without any building. Large number of such schools were in Punjab with a share of 20.8%, Bihar 18.5%, Uttar Pradesh 16.5%, and Odisha 12.6%. Needless to say that in the absence of school building, many other amenities would also not be available in these schools. For example, at all India level, only 85.5% of primary schools had blackboards. Only 28% of schools had any kind of library facilities, and 46.6% had playgrounds. In some states, even such basic amenities as drinking water were yet to be provided. For example, only 21% of rural primary schools in Madhya Pradesh had drinking water facilities. Generally, these deficiencies are accentuated in rural schools. As many as 89% of primary schools, 70% of middle, 27% of secondary and 10% of higher secondary schools in rural areas did not have sanitary facilities. For the implementation of the scheme, detailed guidelines were developed with reference to each component. Since it was not possible to provide the identified facilities to all schools at the same time owing to financial constraints, the implementation was phased out over a period of 3 years. During 1987-88, only 20% of community development blocks and municipal areas of all states and union territories were trained to be covered. Another 30% blocks and municipal areas were to be covered during 1988-89 and the remaining 50% during 1989-90. For the implementation of the scheme, responsibility is being shared by the central and state governments. Their roles with reference to each of the components were defined in detail in a brochure entitled The Scheme of Some of the Guidelines. The description of these guidelines is discussed under different headings like construction of buildings. Funds for construction of buildings have to be arranged by state governments for the schemes for which funds had already been provided by the 8th Finance Commission. A decision at the highest level had also been taken to give high priority to the construction of primary school buildings by judicious allocation of funds provided to states under National Rural Employment Program (NREP) and Rural Landless Employment Guarantee Program (RLEGP). The following clarifications had been made to the states regarding the construction of school buildings. Number 1. Each of the rooms to be constructed should be 30 square meters in area and the depth of the veranda should be approximately 9 to 10 feet. Even if there are 2 rooms in existence at present whose area is less than the recommended area, new rooms should be constructed. Number 2. Separate toilet for boys and girls must form a part of construction activity. Toilets should be constructed that they inculcate desired toilet habits among children. Number 3. The design of buildings should provide scope for expansion. Every effort should be made to utilize local materials to keep the cost low. The buildings should be adequate without being ostentatious and should merge with the environment. It should also be ensured that there is built-in space for storage of equipment. Well-plastered blackboards should also form a part of structure itself in the rooms, as well as both ends of the veranda. Provision of a school teacher in single-teacher schools. Though efforts had been made over the years to reduce the number of single-teacher schools, yet there were a large number of schools in the country which were managed by single teacher. Under Operation Blackboard, the states and union territories were asked to appoint a second teacher in all single-teacher schools. The Government of India was to provide financial help to the states for payment of the salary of the second teacher. The state government was also expected to give a categorical assurance that all new primary schools to be opened would be provided with the teachers. The following specific guidelines were given to the states and union territories in the context of this component. Number 1. To the extent possible, all new teachers to be appointed would be women. It is advisable for every school to have at least one woman teacher. In case of any difficulties in any rural area, the second teacher may also be male, but a corresponding increase in the number of women teachers should be given preference without disturbing the broad policy regarding the appointment of teachers. Number 2. In the cases where persons are trained 2 to 3 years prior to the appointment, they should be provided with a suitable course. Necessary preparation for this purpose should be made immediately. Materials prepared by NCERT to massive orientation program of school teachers should also supplement other sources. Minimum essential learning materials. The list of minimum learning materials in a primary schools, viz. Teachers' materials like syllabi, textbooks, teachers' manuals, classroom teaching materials like wall maps, globe, educational charts, play materials like blocks, strips, jigsaw puzzles, games and toys, games equipment like skipping rope, balls, primary science kit, mini tool kit, mathematics kit, books for library, musical instruments like harmonium, tabla or dholak, manjira, classroom equipment like chairs and tables, mats, boxes, blackboard, ruler board, chalk, duster, trash can, etc. was circulated to all concerned agencies. The state funds for purchase of these materials were to be provided by the central government on a 100% basis up to the end of the 7th 5-year plan. The liability thereafter was to be transferred to the state governments. With reference to the implementation of this component, the following guidelines had been developed for the states and union territories. The material purchased under Operation Blackboard should be of good quality. Norms and specifications in respect of each item have been worked out by NCERT and printed in the book entitled Operation Blackboard Essential Facilities at Primary Stage, Norms and Specifications. This book has been developed in collaboration with Bureau of Indian Standards and has been circulated to all states and union territories. Ministry of Human Resource Development, in collaboration with NCERT and the Bureau of Indian Standards, has taken steps to work out unit costs of standard quality material which may be applicable in practically all parts of the country. By and large, central assistance under the scheme will be restricted to the unit cost, and the state government is expected to adjust its estimates within these limits. Work experience programs in primary schools and secondary schools should be modified to manufacture as many items required under Operation Blackboard as possible. Even polytechnics and ITIs should be encouraged to set up manufacturing units as envisaged under the Earn While You Learn project. The responsibility for replenishment of materials would have to be borne by the state governments or local bodies. Funds for this would have to be provided in a systematic manner from the beginning of the 8th 5-year plan. Teachers would need to be oriented to build an atmosphere in which they make proper use of the material provided and also improvise instructional material on their initiative. This component may be incorporated in all programs of pre-service and in-service teacher education programs. SCERTs and SIEs should also develop simple booklets to facilitate the proper use of material. During 1991 and 92, evaluation studies were undertaken by NCERT and 4 other external agencies to study the impact of the scheme in the first phase in Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Himachal Pradesh, and Madhya Pradesh. The findings indicated that lack of training of teachers in using the teaching learning material, specification of a large number of uniform facilities to be provided without modifications according to local needs, and lack of provision for breakage of equipment had been some of the drawbacks of implementation of the scheme. It was further pointed out that pace of construction of school buildings had not been satisfactory. In the wake of these findings and feedback received through progress reports by Ministry of Human Resource Development from state agencies, the National Policy on Education formulations were revised along with other revisions in the NPE and Program of Action in 1992. The modified Operation Blackboard scheme, as included in Program of Action 1992, had the following sub-schemes. Number 1, continuing of ongoing Operation Blackboard to cover all remaining primary schools, especially those in the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe areas. Number 2, expanding the scope of Operation Blackboard to provide 3 teachers and 3 rooms to primary schools wherever enrollment warrants them. Expanding Operation Blackboard to upper primary schools to provide at least 1 room for each class or section, a headmaster cum office room, separate toilet facilities for boys and girls, essential teaching learning equipment including a library, at least 1 teacher for each class or section, and a contingency grant for replenishment of items, consumable and minor repairs, etc. The following measures were also incorporated for improvement of the quality of implementation of the scheme. Teachers will be trained in using the Operation Blackboard teaching materials under a specially designed teacher training program. State governments will make provision for breakage and replacement of equipment. Enough flexibility will be provided for purchase of teaching learning materials to the curriculum and the local needs. At least 50% of teachers appointed will be women. This will have a positive impact on girls' enrollment and retention. Whenever micro-planning projects are taken up Operation Blackboard will form an integral part of it. As far as possible, low-cost and locally available designs relevant to the local conditions will be adopted for school buildings. Nirmiti Kendras, building centers, and local technical institutes will be associated in this endeavor. As in the past, central government will provide funds for equipment and teachers' salary for the planned period. The state governments will mobilize resources under Jawahar Rozgar Yojana (JRY) and other schemes for construction of school buildings, including headmaster-cum-office room and toilet facilities. The state governments will also provide contingency and replacement funds for equipment. Ongoing Operation Blackboard will cover all schools by 1993-94. Other two sub-schemes will be started in the second half of the 8th plan. About 30% of the eligible schools will be provided 3 rooms and 3 teachers under the expanded Operation Blackboard by the end of 8th plan, and the remaining schools will be covered by the year 2000 AD. Under the expanded Operation Blackboard, a limited number of upper primary schools will be covered during the 8th plan. Depending upon the availability of funds, all upper primary schools will be covered by the year 2000 AD. On concluding, I will mention a statement that Operation Blackboard, a scheme to upgrade primary school facilities, and the implications for policy innovation aimed at improving the quality of primary schooling. Provision of teaching learning aids posed a challenge to the long-established teacher-centered textbook culture of schools, which the National Policy on Education 1986 sought to change. If Operation Blackboard had provided the bare minimum, it would have succeeded. Unfortunately, it remains just another catchword in the planner's dictionary, which they are unable to translate into reality. With this, I thank all of you.